I call to order this meeting of the Issaquah School Board. Today is Tuesday, June 9th, 2026. At this point, will everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First up on our agenda is public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for the board to receive public statements on items not listed on the meeting agenda for possible board action. If you have a point of view for a specific agenda item, which tonight would be monitoring report for results 1 and resolution 1268 for strategic plan refresh, I'll ask you to hold your comments until that particular agenda item comes up. Public comment time is not intended to raise an issue unique to a particular student, staff member, or an administrator. Rather, it is your time to provide your insights on issues more generally and of a wider concern. As a general rule, the board will not respond to public comment, and I ask you to begin your comments by clearly stating your name and your attendance area. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. We will be using a timer, which is in the back of the room. The board neither endorses nor censors any opinions expressed during public comment. Please keep your comments civil and respectful. Avoid any personal attacks on others. And in place of applause, you can acknowledge a speaker by lifting your hands in a waving motion like this. We will start public comment with those in the room and then goes to those with hands raised on Zoom. And I think with that, first on my list is Dorana.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board President, and Directors. I am Dorana Uzzle, the IEA President, and I'm here to share a few final words with you tonight as my presidency comes to a close and a new chapter for me begins back at Sunny Hills being a 5th grade teacher. As I come to the end of my time serving as IEA President, I want to express my sincere gratitude to our superintendent, Donna Hood, Mandy Dory, other administrative staff, and the school board for the partnership we have built over the years. Serving in the role for the past 6 years has been one of my greatest honors of my professional career. I began this journey as president at an extraordinary uncertain time, just as COVID began. Those early days challenged all of us in ways that we couldn't have predicted. We were called to make difficult decisions, adapt quickly, work long days, and remain focused on what mattered, supporting our students, educators, staff, and community. Through those challenges and years that followed, I have been deeply appreciative of the ways we have worked together. Partnership doesn't mean we always agreed, but it does mean we stay committed to the hard work of listening, problem solving, and keeping our shared responsibility to supporting our educators and students at the center of our efforts. I am proud of what we have navigated together and the foundation that has been built through mutual respect, persistence, and a willingness to keep moving forward. It's my sincere hope that this partnership will continue to grow even stronger in the years ahead. As new leadership steps in, I want to offer my full support and best wishes to our incoming president, Joshua Moore. I hope the spirit of collaboration continues and that the work we have done together serves as a strong foundation for the future. I leave this role with gratitude, pride, and excitement for new leadership and a hope for what is to come. Thank you.
Next up is Joshua.
Good evening, Superintendent Tauyek and esteemed board directors. It's an honor to have been chosen by members of the Issaquah Education Association to stand before you tonight as the president-elect of IEA. The Issaquah School District has been my home for the last 25 years. During that time, I've had the incredible opportunity to work within and collaborate across almost every facet of our school system. I've worked with educators and students at all levels and seen firsthand and been a proud partner in building the powerful learning communities that help our students thrive and prepare them to be leaders wherever they go. Alongside my time in the classroom, my perspective has been deeply shaped by my service in union leadership. I've learned how to look at our district's challenges and triumphs through multiple lenses and remain grounded in the realities of teaching and learning. This work has also solidified my fundamental belief that labor unions are the greatest source for creating just and democratic communities for all. I've come to believe through this work two core truths about our school system. First, our system serves the needs of our students, and it is at its best when the voices of our educators are surfaced, heard, and truly valued. When educators are active partners in decision-making, they bring unparalleled professional expertise, invaluable classroom experience, and the strongest possible advocacy for our students. And second, our learning communities and the students in them thrive when systems are built and supported with the best interest of all learners in mind, not just the needs of individual circumstances or the loudest voices in the room. Our union will continue to grow and develop the vital partnership we have with ISD's leadership. And I look forward to fostering even deeper, more collaborative relationships with our vital community partners like the PTSA, Issaquah Schools Foundation, and of course, our school board directors. As leader of IEA, I will be here to bring the stories and experiences and insights of our educators and their students as they work day after day to grow the vital impact of our world-class learning communities and make them even stronger and more inclusive. Thank you for your time tonight. I look forward to working with you to make our schools the best they possibly can be.
Next, Allison.
Hello, my name is Allison. I have a first grader and a kindergartner coming in at Apollo. I'm here today to talk about ed tech. I want to introduce everyone to the Egyptian queen. I kind of call her the OnlyFans of Cleopatra here. This image was given to me by a mother at Apollo. Her daughter is a second grader, and she was utilizing the ed tech program Book Creator. She typed in Egyptian queen and was given this historically inaccurate and rather inappropriate image for a second grader. Call me old-fashioned, but I like to keep the smut out of the school technology. Back in my day, if you wanted to find an image like this, you had to rummage through the bushes behind the 7-Eleven. Today, our kids can get on school-issued technology and find all sorts of things. So Book Creator is utilizing AI technology. So either ISD didn't know they were utilizing it, and they didn't know you could turn that option off, or you did, and I'm assuming you're not okay with second graders finding images like this through ed tech programs. I have concerns about this. I'm concerned about what other images and inappropriate information are being sent to our children without our knowledge. I'm also concerned about what information is being sent back to ed tech. According to Human Rights Watch, 89% of 163 ed tech programs were found to be in violation of children's information privacy rights. Excuse me, getting a little nervous here. So 96% of K through 12 apps, according to Internet Safety Labs, was found to be sharing third-party information with other organizations. So we have lots of concerns regarding data, safety, inappropriate images. So I'm asking ISD to reconsider your relationship with EdTech, possibly roll back where you can, and give, especially at the elementary school level, more analog options, because images like this are not appropriate and they don't help build better brains. Thank you.
Next is Florence.
Good evening, school board directors and Superintendent Tao Yik. My name is Florence Tiang, a junior at Skyline High School, and I'm speaking on behalf of Lens of Youth. About a month ago, I spoke during public comment about disability education and opportunities to bring Misunderstood Moments exhibition into Issaquah School District schools. Tonight, as the school year comes to a close, I would like to share what has happened over the past year and express our gratitude to the students, educators, families, and district staff who have supported our work. Misunderstood Moments is a youth-led program that helps people better understand intellectual or developmental disabilities through real-life stories and youth-created illustrations. This year, we were honored to share the exhibition with students and educators at Gibson Egg High School and Skyline High School, as well as through the District Special Education Department, Issaquah PTSA Council Parent Advisory Program, and Bridges of Belonging contest. The program was also featured by Issaquah Schools Foundation Cultural Bridges and Washington State PTSA. These opportunities reflect the district's commitment to valuing student voice and creating an inclusive community for all students. So thank you for that. Through these experiences, we saw firsthand how sharing real stories can build understanding and belonging. One viewer shared, "Now I understand their situation better, and I can be more kind and inclusive." Beyond the school community, Misunderstood Moments has reached many thousand people across 6 cities. We have also seen understanding turn into action. Inspired by these stories and conversations, community members joined our efforts, and together we launched free inclusive classes in art, music, dance, and kung fu. What happened has reinforced our belief that when people understand, people care. And when people care, communities become more inclusive. Thank you for your time and consideration for bringing the Misunderstood Moments program into the ISD schools.
Thank you. Felicia.
Good evening, school board directors and Superintendent Tao Yik. My name is Felicia Chiang. I'm a junior at Skyline High School, and I'm also speaking on behalf of Lens of Youth. So as we continue conversations with district staff about bringing misunderstood moments into schools, I would like to share why we believe this program can support student learning in meaningful ways. It aligns with Washington State's Disability History Month law, which I think you have a handout of, which calls for activities that build understanding of disability history and people with disabilities. So Misunderstood Moments offers a student-centered approach to support that. It also reflects the values of the King County Youth Bill of Rights, which is on the back side of the handout, including the right to a quality education, equity, emotional safety, and belonging. So understanding disability and neurodiversity helps students learn how to prevent exclusion and how to build inclusion. Education is incredibly important for inclusion, especially since it is a skill that must be learned and practiced. All students need to develop the skill to understand, respect, and work with people whose experiences may be different from their own. Without education, many students do not know how to practice inclusion in the real world. The lessons students learn in school help shape the people they become. As a student myself, I know that as we grow, those lessons influence the choices we actually make and the communities we build. So schools are where inclusion begins. We know balancing everything is very hard. As a student, I appreciate your leadership and want to say thank you for all your work in this school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mahima.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mahima. I'm a junior at Liberty Senior High School. And one fun fact about me is that I'm Indian. I'm very proud of that. You can see that through my very vibrant jewelry. But growing up in the Issaquah School District, I always knew that I was very much included. And that was through programs in Apollo and Liberty, like Multicultural Night. So when I joined the Language Access Committee later this year, in my junior year, I realized that students at Skyline and Issaquah never have had this experience. And so they felt less included in the environment. And that is when I and a couple other students took the initiative to start a multicultural night program at the Holly Street Early Learning Center. Now, in this program, we had the preschoolers interact with different cultures, like the Filipino culture, the Russian culture, which you can see in your handout. Now, what we learned from this experience is that several parents came to us and talked about how important and how valuable this experience was for their children, because their children at a very young age were able to learn the differences in all of us and learn how to appreciate that, all in turn, and makes our environment more inclusive. And that is why I, as long as several other students of the Issaquah School District program, urge that we have some program in all of our schools that present diversity as such a beautiful thing and give opportunities for different cultures to be represented. And so I would move forward that in the next year, we start focusing on implementing such programs in every single school in the district. Now, this seems kind of admirable and something that's quite ambitious. But I will say that as high schoolers, we were able to do so, and that was with no money used. So I think as a district, we can all unite together and do these types of initiatives and gain a lot more from our students and parents as well. And so if you were to move forward with this, I would highly consider reaching out to student representatives like that or myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Mahika.
Hello, my name is Mahika Agarwal, an eighth grader from Beaver Lake Middle School, and I'm representing Lens of Youth. I recently interviewed a health teacher at Beaver Lake Middle School to better understand what is currently being taught in the health curriculum. And she shared that while students learn important topics like wellness, mental health, communication, and respecting differences, disabilities in general are not directly included in instruction. She also explained that teachers have some flexibility within the curriculum and that disability education could realistically fit into multiple existing units throughout the year. In her words, it is something that could be incorporated in several different parts of the course rather than needing to stand alone as a separate unit. Right now, disability is mostly addressed indirectly and briefly through broader lessons on empathy and differences. But indirect exposure is not the same as clear and direct learning and understanding. Without that clear understanding, students may not always know how to interact with or include peers with disabilities, not because of unkindness, but because they were never taught. That is why I am asking the district to include age-appropriate education on disabilities within the health curriculum. This connects what is already being taught, including lessons on empathy, communication, and respecting differences. It would be able to help strengthen those lessons by making them more specific, real, and meaningful. Understanding is what turns inclusion from idea into action. That is why disability education should be part of what students learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Maddie.
Good evening. Thank you for the chance to speak today. My name is Maddie Coates. I'm the editor of the Issaquah Spotlight, and I'm here to share some exciting details about the future of local news in Issaquah. In 2017, the Issaquah Press shut down after 117 years, leaving behind its legacy as a trusted source of local news coverage. The loss of local news didn't just mean fewer headlines, it meant fewer opportunities for civic engagement, accountability, and shared understanding. We know that communities are strongest when residents have trusted information about what's happening around them. That's why I'm proud to introduce a new chapter of local journalism in Issaquah. The Issaquah Spotlight is a new digital newspaper, and our first issue came out last Friday. This is an independent, community-led effort to deliver meaningful local news and information to the greater Issaquah area. It's entirely free to subscribe. All you need to do is enter your email. Every Friday, subscribers will receive 3 to 5 stories in their email inbox detailing the topics that matter most to our community. In surveying residents, we've heard that people want to read about our schools, sports, businesses, local government, culture, arts and culture, transportation, history, human interest stories, the list goes on. Our coverage of Issaquah School District will focus on the decisions, policies, and people shaping local education. This ties into our mission of delivering independent local news that helps Issaquah residents understand their community and feel empowered to participate in civic life. We also hope to work with students to expand our sports coverage while helping them develop interviewing, writing, and photography skills rooted in journalistic integrity and ethics. Our publisher, Adam Pinsky, started building the foundation for the Issaquah Spotlight exactly 1 year ago. Since then, we've hired a reporter, an editor, established a board of directors, launched our website, and built a clear financial plan. Just a couple days ago, we officially got nonprofit status, and we rely on donations, grant funding, and sponsorships to succeed. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Claudia.
Good evening. board members. My name is Claudia Romo, and I am a parent of an autistic student in elementary school. Tonight, I would like to talk about the importance of teaching acceptance, understanding, and awareness of neurodiversity from an early age. What many kids experience on an ordinary school day often requires extraordinary effort from kids like my son. In his own words, he often says that every day feels like a battle. I know our school, our district, and our community are working very hard to create more inclusive environments. But I also know that for many neurodivergent students, there are battles happening every day that others may never see. As a parent, I have learned that acknowledge make invisible visible. We work very hard to provide children like my son with the supports they need to succeed. But I believe we should invest just as much effort in helping the world understand them. When understanding grows, empathy grows. When empathy grows, acceptance follows. The goal is not for the neurodivergent children to carry the entire responsibility of fitting in. The goal is to build communities where the responsibility is shared for all of us. As a parent of a fourth grader, I'm already thinking about middle school, and to be honest, that transition feels very scary. Knowing my son could enter middle school with friends who understand and accept him will not remove the challenge ahead, but it will mean he doesn't have to face them alone. That's why I believe elementary school is the best place to start. I invite the district to continue expanding opportunities for disability and neurodiversity education in elementary schools. My son is learning how to live in this world. Let's also help the world learn how to welcome him. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room that would like to give public comment? Is there anybody online? Two. Okay. Let's see. Why don't we start with Erica?
Hi, thank you for letting me have a comment. I have a kindergartner, soon to be first grader at Maple Hills, and I would like to bring up my concerns about ed tech. I want to start with a story. So, in prep for tonight, I asked my son, what do you think about iReady and the games that you play on your computer? And he says they're great. And I said, what do you love about them? He's like, they're so much fun. And I said, great. What are you learning from them? And he's like, oh, well, they're not meant for learning. They're just meant for playing. And so, this has raised multiple concerns with me. And I've noticed this trend throughout the year that games, iReady, he calls them games, the iReady and the learning programs on their laptops in the elementary schools are just perceived as games. He doesn't learn anything from them. One of my other concerns is also about data breaches. As Allison brought up, I'm very concerned about the data that these programs sell to third-party users. And I know that ISD has a policy around this, but I am asking that these programs be rolled back and or have an opt-out options for parents in elementary school who have concerns about their children using them and would like their data protected better. Kids learn better from teachers and they learn better from books. So let's roll back the ed tech and take a very good look at these data policies to make sure that our children are not being compromised. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Next, Leo. I think you're still on mute, Leo.
Sorry about that. Took me a second to find the unmute button. Hi, my name is Leo Flores, and I have a son that's going to be attending Apollo in kindergarten. And I have concerns also about the tech being used in schools and, hearing other parents and what their experiences have been. And I would just urge the school board to, maybe have more conversation about this, listen to parents' concerns, and also have a way for parents to opt out of the type of tech that's being used. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Daniel or Kathy? I'm not sure.
Hi, thanks so much. So my name is Kathy Jurek, and my daughter is in second grade at Apollo, and I also have an incoming kindergartner in the fall as well. I'm here today to support the statements of Allison, Erica, and other parents and urge the board to look at the use of EdTech and AI in our schools, especially at the elementary school level. To date, I have not been satisfied by the district's response to parents' serious concerns, especially about digital privacy, as well as the use of screen time as a substitute for instruction by qualified teachers. I would like to see a full audit of EdTech used in our elementary schools and to provide parents with insight into how much time elementary students are spending on technology during the school day. Technology should be serving our students and not the other way around. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that is everyone online. Okay, this will close public comment. Next up is we will move to approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a meeting management tool whereby the board is able to pass multiple items with one motion. The consent agenda items have been reviewed by the board prior to this meeting. Any board member may remove an item from the consent agenda and place it on the regular agenda for discussion. I need a motion.
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next up is the establishment of the regular agenda. Superintendent, are there any changes to the regular agenda?
There are no changes to the regular agenda.
Okay. Moving right along then. Next up is works in progress. This is a standing opportunity for the superintendent to provide a brief status report on various projects and activities in the district. I will turn it over to you, Ms. Superintendent.
Great, thank you. So the very first thing at the very beginning of the month, or the only meeting of the month, is we do talk about the calendar of events and recognition for different things that are happening across the district. This is our standing opportunity to recognize the plethora and myriad ways that we honor our cultures, our religions, our different identities, and also areas of focus that are important to education and to the education industry. And this is probably a shorter calendar because we are in June at the end of the year, so we're actually going to see a lot of things about reminders about key dates about the school year, which is the end of school, as well as key graduation ceremonies. But we always like to have this as a recognition of the variety of ways that we honor our community and reflect back what's happening, in addition to provide practical information. Thank you for sharing that. This is a great launch into what is coming up next and really big this week, which is graduation and transition ceremonies. We do have the Academy for Community Transition and ACT graduation tomorrow, followed by Skyline, Liberty, and Issaquah High School graduations on June 11th, which is Thursday, as well as finally rounding out the week, Gibson Neck High School in the afternoon on June 12th. So I'm excited to see many of our families and our staff in support of our students and just honor this major milestone in their journey in life. And it's just such a special time for us to be able to celebrate our young people. So very excited about that. In terms of recognition, we've also tonight just had the retirement recognition for staff members who provided years of service. Well, I think, someone retiring with upwards of about 40 plus years of service to the Issaquah School District and to the folks who maybe spent a couple years, but were sort of later in their career when they joined our time here. So it's a really special moment to be able to have a moment of closure and farewell and good luck in the next chapter for many staff members. I do want to thank Assistant Superintendent Donna Hood, who oversees human resources, and her entire team to help make that event special and really a moment for our retiring staff members and their family and or their friends. So that was really nice. Last week, we had another great event that you heard a little bit about from some of our students who provided public comment. It was called Bridges to Belonging, and I mentioned that last board meeting in anticipation of that event. But I want to thank Director Anderson for joining Jacqueline Downey, Mark Sherwood, and Martin Turney and I at this inaugural event last week. The room was packed with over 100 students and their families, recognizing 12 finalists of a student or a group of students who were able to identify a problem and also propose solutions to increase belonging and empathy within our schools. Each student or group of students were presented with certificates and a token of appreciation and recognition of their efforts, and enjoyed dinner. And they had another opportunity to present their work, which I thought was a fantastic way to actually tie into the portrait of a graduate and communication skills, because students in elementary school through high school presented what they saw as an opportunity in their school community, and many of them did it from memory. So that was so impressive to have opportunities for public speaking in front of an audience in a really authentic and powerful way. So thank you. It also just highlighted student voice overall, but thank you to our PTSA leaders who really led in that evening and were the driving force behind this inaugural recognition and opportunity for young people to share their voice. Lavinia Harden, Junie Wu, Melissa Valdez, and Lauren Nee. And I already know that many of our schools are excited to take those ideas. There was one proposal that, according to one student, would cost less than $300 to implement as a solution to bring about more empathy and belonging at an elementary school. So very thorough, detailed plans were put forward. So our school building leaders and others are going to help with paving the way for those next steps. So that was great. And then just some, exciting information about our communications team and the efforts, which is certainly also a cross-functional effort based on content area across the district. But we've earned 6 awards on a national level from the National School Public Relations Association for the following. We've earned a Golden Achievement Award for the 2026 Levy Renewal Campaign. And then for some of our publications and digital media awards, our Focus newsletter received an Award of Excellence in the newsletter category. The Homeroom Huddle, which is a podcast, received an Award of Excellence. Another Award of Excellence for video production was focusing on American Sign Language with Paige Friedley. Our annual guide to the budget, which I know this board likes to refer to often as an important product and artifact related to the district as a handbook, received an Award of Merit. And then the Last Day of School video in 2025 also received an Award of Merit. So kudos to our team for their hard work and across the district for all of the amazing things that happen that we also get to communicate. So Mr. Mark Sherwood, thank you for your effort in leading that team and effort overall. So huge appreciation. And with that, we are winding down. The last day of school is June 16th. I know every time I've stepped foot into a school this week and last week, everyone was saying, is it 10 days or 11 days, depending on if you count the day that we're in. But nonetheless, people are counting down because while they've had a great year, they're also excited for summer. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up on the agenda is a budget update. The administration will present the budget update in preparation for the August budget hearing. I will turn it over to, looks like Mr. Turney.
All right, my name is Martin Turney, Chief of Finance and Operations, and we are getting closer to that next budget guide that we're going to be producing. So you can look forward to that. So this is another series of our updates for this year for the budget, reflecting commitment to ongoing monitoring and transparency as conditions continue to evolve. Across these updates, the message has been consistent. Issaquah School District continues to demonstrate strong financial stewardship while also navigating increasing financial pressures. We continue to see positive indicators, including a clean audit, expected bond refunding savings, and recent levy approvals, along with our continued commitment to deliver on the programs and services these levies are intended to support. At the same time, we know the underlying conditions we've been discussing throughout the year remain in place and are continuing to develop, particularly enrollment-driven revenue changes, ongoing state funding gaps, and rising operating costs. So tonight builds on that by summarizing current conditions, outlining how we are responding through budget alignment while continuing to preserve key commitments and plan for long-term sustainability. So I am going to turn it over to Mariah, and she's going to walk you through the details.
Thank you, Martin. Great. All right, first, I would like to congratulate the district on our 24-25 audit results. We received a clean audit, the first in 3 years. And for an audit, they cover accountability, financial statement, and federal compliance. So in the federal compliance area, anything over $25,000 is considered an audit finding, as for reference. They audited over $6.3 million of our federal expenses and did not have any recommendations in that area. They also audited use of restricted funds, supplemental contracts, our major software conversion, tracking, monitoring theft-sensitive assets, ASB, fundraising, cash receipting, procurement, open public meetings, and financial condition, as well as our financial statements and notes. And then for federal funds, they audited special education and food service. So I would like to thank our students who participate in our audit as well as part of their ASB fundraising activities and cash receipting, as well as our staff. And this shows diligent care and attention to internal controls and the district's commitment to strong financial stewardship. We have an update for the bond refunding. So in the past month, the market has been quite volatile. So we did hold off on our initial date for the bond sale. And we do have right now expected results of $18.6 million in taxpayer savings. And by watching that market, we were able to get over $1.4 million more in savings. So would like to thank our partners with the advisors and underwriters and watching the market with us and making those savings come true. So some factors for why we were able to secure the interest rate was our strong financial stewardship as well as our management practices, and then our strong credit ratings as well. So what this does is it reduces the amount that we collect in future years over the next 6 years, and that lowers the overall tax burden for our taxpayers. I'd also like to thank the community for the local levy approval in February. This is critical funding for support of our students and their services and programs, technology, critical repairs, in many areas, as well as our operating costs. This is very, very critical to continue these services. While there are still state funding gaps, this is still important, and we value that the community has said that they believe this is important as well for the community. So part of our budget process is looking at enrollment. There are a lot of different factors when considering this. So King County has dropped in birth rates. They've dropped 14% since 2016. Our district did come in below those rates as well. And then housing affordability has continued to be difficult, and especially with younger families to move into the district. And then, as many have seen, there have been layoffs in our area throughout the Pacific Northwest. So there is an elevated level of uncertainty when we're looking at our enrollment projections for next year. We're watching them very closely. And we'll get into this next slide, which will show what we're seeing within kindergarten. So this is kind of something that we can get a viewpoint into is kindergarten. And what we saw was in May, this year we have 911 students that were confirmed. And then last year at the same time, there was 977. So that's showing us that, based on that trend, we would expect we'll have less students than that came in October of last year. So this would show us that it would be estimated about 975, but we are continuing to monitor this as some people decide at different times to confirm their enrollment. So we will be able to confirm this by the end of this month for our budget. But we are seeing that the enrollment for kindergarten is coming in lower than the low scenario from our demographer. So we are watching this very closely and how this is impacting other grades as well. This shows our historical view of our enrollment. So we've lost almost 500 students for this year and are estimating around the same amount for next year. And we're not alone. So this is not uncommon. Our other districts are experiencing this as well. So they saw that, they lost a good amount of students after the pandemic. And then you have the lower birth rates that are leading to the smaller cohorts, and those are rolling up through the system. And this is very common with many districts in the state and the country. So for our budget context, the state budget is constrained. There are articles out there. If you feel free to read them about our state, where they are putting in reductions in state agencies and whatnot. We're looking really closely at the next session coming up for the next year. We have a link here in this presentation. Feel free to check it out. It's a third-party link that talks about the Washington State funding for education. We rank 40th in the nation. They do also point out these specific areas that are grossly underfunded by $800 million statewide. And that's special education, materials, supplies, and operating costs, and transportation. And just for 24-25 alone, our district had $19.4 million underfunded in just those categories. Also for next year, we will have a reduction of transition to kindergarten funding by 70%, which is over $700,000. So you'll see in these next slides how and we've talked about before, how we are aligning our budget, but also preserving those key commitments that we made to families and voters. So for the current year, 25-26 fund balance update, in March, we projected that we would be having about an $8.9 million deficit, and we have increased that due to increased costs to $12.5 million. We were watching this closely, and we're expecting this to increase. So utility costs, they went up quite a bit by $1.2 million. Also, part of the collective bargaining agreement was investment in overload. And so we saw this actualized throughout the year to help us project this in future years. Also, something to note is, insurance. So in the last 5 years, insurance, we paid $2.9 million a year, and now next year is going to be $8.5 million. So that just shows how much just one cost can go up in 5 years, and there's a multitude of costs to support a district. And so that's how the state is not supporting the increasing costs and inflation, as an example. So you've seen this chart before. This is showing our fund balance. It's a percentage to our expenditures. So with this projection, that would put us at 8% to our expenditures for how much we have in the bank. And so what this chart is showing you is that the district is more, we don't have as much in the bank. So as an example, on a monthly basis, our payroll is $27 million. We will have $33 million in our fund balance. So that's getting pretty close to 1 month of payroll. Something else specific to our district is if we ever were not able to make payroll, you might have seen other districts are pulling from their capital projects fund. In future years, we will not have funds in that fund to pull into our general fund. So we won't have that as a safety net. That is not something that we ever want to do. Yes. So it's an interfund loan when that happens, and it has to be paid back with interest. So it's an indicator that the district is not able to pay their bills and they have to borrow from another fund to do that. That is not something that we are doing currently, but that's something that we are going to be reporting on, is watching our cash flow very closely over the next few years so that we don't get into that type of situation. So we're also providing an update. We last looked at this in the winter. This is our designations for our fund balance. There are some of these that are unknown. For example, prepaid items we will not know until year end. It does range from $3 million to $7 million in all the different assignments. With the current assignments and estimates, it would leave our unassigned fund balance at 1.45%. Our board minimum is 3 to 7%. And so we would need to remove out over $15 million of these designations in order to get closer to that 5%. Also, something to note is there's some reasons why we want to have our unassigned at 5%. So we were specifically told by the credit rating agencies that they consider downgrading districts who do have unassigned that are less than 5% in their fund balance. I was reading audit findings of other surrounding districts who had audit findings for financial condition, and they listed the district being out of board policy with their unassigned as well. And so they can also get increased risk of audit findings and recommendations as well. So we do recommend reviewing our current reserve designations and budget development guidelines prior to the adoption in August for the 26-27 budget. So while we have had a couple years of deficits, there's also been investments and achievements made during the last 2 years, and this does not cover all of them, obviously. This is just some categories. So we've had major curriculum adoption startup and continuation with staffing. We've also implemented the equity-based budget supports, as well as expanding student supports through multi-tiered levels, counseling, assistant principals, early learning, and special education. Schools have also worked very hard to implement dual language at a middle school for Spanish. And then there's additional offerings for AP and career and technical educational pathways. Our principals as well have been working with our before and after school care team and looking at wait lists at all the schools and getting, space available so they could expand that and serve more students and provide more family supports. Preschool Academy has expanded as well as summer camps in the preschool and middle school. And then also family supports such as community resource fairs and vaccines. So within, change in our budget and having some deficits, we need to balance our budget. So that in our prior presentations, we talked about some different reductions that we're making. And so that is why budget alignment is necessary so that we can start to stabilize our fund balance. It can start to grow that fund balance so that we do have reserves to continue as a district and continue to have over a certain amount of days of payroll in the bank as well. So it reduces our flexibility, and also we need to preserve our long-term financial sustainability. This shows this was in the April presentation that shows our aligning revenues to expenditures for enrollment as well as so the different categories. So you'll see that we did reduce admin and operations FTE by 6%. And then we also reduced the teacher staffing, school-based staffing by 4% in aligning our revenues to expenditures for 26-27. So something, that we notice, so we do watch other districts' board presentations. We read their presentations. We go to their meetings. We talk to them a lot. And so we do find out what are other districts doing around the state and how are they managing their budget. And so what we notice is they're increasing class sizes. They're reducing student support, including assistant principals. They're eliminating seventh period day. They're changing grade configuration from K through 6, 7 through 9, and then 10 through 12. And then elimination of sports and different opportunities. Issaquah's approach has been different. So we've maintained class sizes. So even if we do have some teacher reductions, but that is in line with our enrollment projection. This is not increasing class sizes, ratios. We also focused on attrition, retirements, resignations, restructuring when possible, to avoid a formal RIF, reduction in force. And then we preserved our levy commitments, our key student supports. We don't have a school consolidation or major structural changes to the grades. And then we also are investing in the future, and we'll go over the specifics, in different areas for the district as well. So we're continuing to innovate, although at the same time, we do need to align our budget. It's for long-term sustainability. So for preserving our commitments for 26-27, although we had 70% of our funding reduced for transition to kindergarten, we are continuing all 5 classrooms to support those early learners. We also did expand dual language Mandarin at our preschool academy, and then implementing MTSS, intervention and identification, as well as continuing those investments through the voter approved levies. And then to look ahead for 27-28, we have other things on the horizon that we're continuing to innovate and offer, and preserve those commitments we made to voters. So we're going to be expanding Mandarin dual language program to an elementary school. That specific elementary school will be announced at a later time. And then we're also opening an innovative choice high school. And this will be focused on engineering, robotics, health services, and entrepreneurship as well. So ahead of us, we have, we're going to be meeting with our financial advisory core team meeting in July to review our annual guide to the budget, as well as the budget itself. We're going to have a board presentation and hearing in August and potential adoption. We're also continuing to fine tune our multi-year financial planning to address these enrollment declines and support our sustainability, and then also remain adaptive and innovative so that we can continue to honor these commitments to students and families. Thank you, and welcome any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Director Allinger?
Thank you for this. You talked about kindergarten enrollment and how you're tracking that. Curious how preschool enrollment and early learning enrollment is and compares with previous years for Holly Street, as well as our various preschools across our district, and ECAP enrollments, both for who's continuing from 4 to 5, as well as other, what the stabilization or not is on those enrollments.
Yeah. Well, it's my conversation with our before and after school care program, as well as our preschool academy. The Mandarin dual language program at the preschool level sold out within that first week. It was very quick. It went very fast. And then they're looking at space as well. They're expanding to the south end as well. And so it's maneuvering space a lot of times, and making sure it works for the school in different locations, and then making sure there's the need. It hasn't been communicated to me that there has been a limit yet, but they do look at that just to make sure they don't open up something that doesn't fill.
Yeah, I guess I would appreciate to have more detail on where we are with early learning enrollment and how that trend compares this year versus previous years. So we get a sense of, we're talking about the kindergarten pipeline, but would love to know how much of an indicator or not our 3 and 4-year-old.
Yeah, as part of our follow-up, we can
program there.
certainly provide information by the type of program. I know anecdotally that our transition to kindergarten there's a wait list, right? So we know that anecdotally there's still high demand, but having that information, we can provide that as a follow-up.
Thank you.
Director Henderson?
Thank you for this update. I think slide 19 really helps emphasize the efforts that the district is making in minimizing disruption to students and staff while navigating the budget reduction. So thank you. I would like to come back around maybe in a year or so and make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable with like the class size ratios, because I have heard quite a bit of concern from teachers with our budget reduction in staff, that might be something that needs to be looked at. So I just want to make sure that that's not forgotten about.
And I just want to add there has been some change in our district where yes, we did not change our class size ratio, but we are monitoring things that are on the bubble. And so instead of releasing that FTE too early before all the kids are confirmed, and so that is probably what you're hearing is that those are things as the students are confirmed in August, then we would release that FTE.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
And I will add that this list is the current approach. I think as landscapes change, we should always be talking about all of our approaches overall. But this is our current approach, which I appreciate. Mariah talking about reviewing other board meetings. She said she listened to 3 board meetings of different districts yesterday. So it's helpful to gather that information, and we might learn something as well. But it helps to show that. Thank you.
I also had a question, and this isn't really. I mean, you opened the door on the presentation, so it's not really budget related, but on slide 16 under family supports, there's a mention about expanding BASC. And I'm curious because I have heard from, being that I'm headed into middle school with my daughter, if there has been any talk about before and after school BASC at the middle school level. And, that pertains to potentially our special education students and even my 11-year-old. I don't necessarily trust her at home alone yet, and would love opportunities for that. Of course, she's going to be able to get more involved in after school activities and that kind of thing. But I'm just curious if BASC has been looked at for middle school for at least our, 6th and 7th graders.
Jason Morse, Executive Director of Operations. Thank you for the question. So we have expanded the BASC program for this summer. As many may or may not remember, we collapsed that program during the COVID pandemic and have slowly been working our way towards bringing that particular program back. We opened last summer for summer care at Cougar Mountain Middle School. We're expanding it this year. We'll have a site on the plateau, and I believe our other site is at Cougar Mountain again. So we are working that way. The BASC and preschool program have been focusing expansion efforts primarily in the areas of reducing our wait lists at the elementary level. We're doing that actively as we speak, expanding middle school back into the summer program, and then also expanding our preschool offerings, which will include Mandarin preschool. So the interest for middle school during the year care is there. We are taking slow but progressive steps to ensure that an expansion back into that program is financially feasible, to be quite honest. That is why we're attempting to grow the program at the summertime level to gauge the ability to have enough enrollment to create a sustaining program at the middle schools. I'm not convinced right now that we have that interest, but that is definitely on our radar screen as we continue to grow programs and try to provide more service for our community.
Great. Thank you.
Dr. Mullins?
So I want to go back to the class size point, because it comes up often. And I would love maybe if you take a bit of a slower walk through the releasing of FTE, when and how you do that, because this comes up every year. And for me, one of the things, because this is a conversation people keep having, I just find odd. So I think we're all on board that we're going to have less students. We will have less teachers, which equals holding classes steady. I think that's just math. I think what seems to be causing people consternation is the piece about when do we go through the process of releasing more FTE. So if you could just walk through that a little bit slower, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. So HR meets with the schools in March, and they go over the initial staffing based on the projection. And then we have different staff that stay, resignations throughout this, different schools and different things like that. We continue to refine our enrollment, and so we go class by class. And we meet a lot. and we talk to the principals a lot. And so, so there are times though where, for example, right now, there are a few schools I know of where, you do have an open teacher position, but you would hold on that because it is so close that if those kids aren't confirmed, you would need to pull it. And then if you add that now, you don't have anywhere to put that teacher. And so we're trying to cause less harm in the system so that if we do need to move a teacher or say that school, they already have an open spot. And so it's a lot easier for that school to move around and not disrupt and move teachers from school to school. So there's different strategy to do that. And we're also more conservative than we have been because of the reduced fund balance as well. We also will be looking at, for timeline. So we are still making case-by-case decisions, working with HR, seeing where resignations pop up. And then the kindergarten numbers as well, seeing what trickles in, so we can make some changes there. And then otherwise, open enrollment is August 7th through the 14th. And so that week we'd be making, changes at that time.
I'm just going to piggyback, point out a couple of things I know you mentioned, just to make sure it's clear that we are kind of in a hyper conservative stance as a district. We have, in the growth period, you can have your projections, you can see how it works out, and you can even float a year if you happen to have less kids than you thought, but you're pretty close. It's a little bit easier to do it that way. We have to now be conservative. I think we talked about through the enrollment projections. And what that means is that if, like Mariah said, if we release any FTE prematurely, we will retain that staff member and that cost for an entire year. Right. So it's in the best interest for us to wait a little longer than we normally would. Wait till August when we know it's the students are in the seats. Then we release, we have the same staff to student ratio, and we know we have what we have. So that way we can avoid those additional costs if we don't need to.
Awesome. Thank you for humoring me on that. I think it's important for people to understand the why behind the timing. And I just hope that hearing that explanation, which is actually hoping the system works more efficiently, is helpful. That it is being monitored, there's awareness of the numbers, and that staffing decisions are still to be made. Next, I have 4. So next was the insurance number you quoted. Can you just say that again? The current year to future year?
Yeah. I'll get you exact. So, so 5 years ago, our annual insurance was $2.9 million a year. And then for next year, it has grown to $8.5 million.
So thank you. 1, I didn't write it down because I was too busy being shocked, but I just think it's important because I think there's, again, a lot. I'm going to stay on me and the guide to understanding the budget and the fluidness of the budget and the complexity of the budget, which is, it is an ever moving target. So just as personal expenses go up for each and all of our households, the district bears out of just much bigger numbers. And I think that's a really good example to highlight so that people can understand that these are fluid numbers and they're quite large. So there's a constant process and review you're going through to understand where the budget is and how it moves. But I thought that number was really important when you said it. So I want to repeat that. All right.
So I can drill that in a little bit further, is that we were given an estimate in February of an 18% increase in our insurance, and we got a 26% increase. So that is that fluid as we go along. And honestly, our increase was not as drastic as some others, had quite higher increases. And the justification that I was given is that's part of us being good stewards of how we do business, not just financially, but everything safety wise and how we conduct ourselves in terms of risk management. So while that's a steep increase, it could have been worse if we weren't already doing those things as a district.
Yeah, super. I just think super helpful to have a very real example. We all have to pay for insurance And again, I would choke if it went from 18 to 26 in my own house. So I get that. Okay, so the next is one of the items you brought up was the assigned items in the fund balance. That what is the timing in which we have to make a choice to change that? I just want to make sure I understand that.
Before we adopt the budget in August, so that the second board meeting in August.
Okay, so we'll just have to review that. Is that like is it part of that adoption? So it's one motion, it all changes, or is that an action we have to take first in order to create the budget?
No, we could do it at any time. We could do it at the first board meeting in August, or even, in 2 weeks from now, we could take a peek at it, so.
Okay, that's helpful. And then maybe my last one was more of a comment, which is, it's obviously tough financial conditions. They're changing all the time. The insurance is a great example of that. For me, I just appreciate the consistent focus on the additional investments and how we're continuing to evolve to meet the needs of our community, to meet the expectations. Like, I think it could be very easy in a time like this to just contract and not focus on making sure we're providing what's really important. So I just want to call out, it's great to hear that like the Mandarin preschool program sold out. Like, we're investing in the right places when you make a comment like that. And so, yes, some of the cuts and reductions are painful, but it's also very gratifying to see the focused and prioritized expansion and investment.
Okay, any other questions? All righty. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up on the agenda is an update of the implementation plan for operational expectation 12 learning environment. I will turn it over to the superintendent and her captain.
Great. This is an exciting opportunity for us to provide an update on a topic that's been at the forefront of our discussions for operational expectation 12 over the past time that I've been the superintendent and beyond. So I think there's some important, helpful clarity points about where we are in the process and the journey, as well as what we can expect moving into next year. And I think that's an important part of our accountability to our board policies, but also to our community as well. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Downey.
And good evening, Board of Directors and Superintendent Taoyik. I'm Jacqueline Downey, Assistant Superintendent, here with Rich Mellish, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning Services. And tonight, our purpose is to update you on the action steps we have taken this school year to increase consistency of high school grading and homework expectations by this coming fall. As you all know, this work is grounded in operational expectation 12.1 and 12.2. And at the heart of it is that grading practices and homework practices should be equitable, as well as grounded in best practice research to best serve students. Grades should reflect learning. And what we've heard from the board through our 2 retreats and work studies is that this desire to ensure grading practices and homework practices are consistent across courses.
So in this slide, we talk a little bit about where we've been. Recent grading practice alignment work has resulted in stronger consistency for common courses within a school, and with grading more consistency in grading categories, weights, and recovery plans. With the last collective bargaining, we also made some system-wide changes to shore up timeliness of feedback and a process for continued improvement in problem solving. Engagement on grading this year included a family listening session, 3 school-based listening sessions with the school board, exit and soft skills student surveys, 6 grading practice advisory meetings, 2 board retreat sessions, superintendent student leadership meetings, student board representative conversations, and direct feedback from students, family, and staff. Feedback from these engagements provided insights into ways that we can plan and monitor improvements in grading and homework practices. And further insights may be gained as we collaborate with Lake Washington, Bellevue, and Mercer Island, as grading and homework is a shared regional topic of interest. One of the most promising avenues for change is the emergence of a rebooted Grading Practices Advisory Committee, or GPAC. The GPAC is a collaboration with certificated teachers, school and district leaders, to dive more deeply into the experience of our students and families and the high leverage instructional practices related to grading. The GPAC met 6 times this year and has already scheduled a meeting in August to plan our approach for further engagement and improvement during the 2026-27 school year and beyond.
Right. Thank you, Rich. And ultimately, all of this engagement, both with students, staff, families, has led to the following changes beginning in the fall of 2026. And first off, that is defined common assessment practices across the district that are grounded in universal design for learning, as well as the Danielson framework for teaching, which is used for observation and evaluation of teachers. What this means is that there's a common approach to daily instruction, weekly, monthly, so that students should know that they'll have multiple opportunities to demonstrate their learning and get feedback on their learning before there is a summative grade. The second item here is coming out of the problem-solving practice that was codified with the GPAC. And that is calibrated and aligned grading practices for AP Calculus AB across the district. So a full day of calibration, collaboration from these teachers, or with these teachers, alongside Rich and other TLS colleagues, took place such that there should be discrepancies eliminated, differences between grading in schools, specifically for AP Calculus AB, as this was identified as an area of need. Number 3 is the common AP IB grade bump policies for common courses across the district. Recently, we engaged in staff meetings at all of our comprehensive high schools with AP and IB teachers and addressed this challenge we were hearing from our students and families about how grade bumps were inconsistent. And through that process of looking at options for how to address this issue, collaboratively with teachers, they said, hey, we can norm and agree across the district. So for instance, an AP Literature and Composition course at Liberty or Skyline or Issaquah High will have a consistent AP grade bump policy. And that is beginning this fall. Number 4 is common grading practices for all common courses within a school. And this was already the expectation, so we want to note this, but will now be supported by progress monitoring professional learning for principals this August. So our principals will engage in learning around all of our strategic plan key strategies and what does it look like to bake in feedback and progress monitoring into our systems that already exist for classroom observation and feedback. And then lastly, common expectations for homework load and purpose have been generated and based on best practice research with feedback from school staff and will be included in the district course catalog that comes out in the winter and by common course syllabi that come out in August at each school. Now, how do we monitor this progress? Who is checking on how this is going? Because it can all sound great, but what is happening in reality? And that is the feedback we've continued to hear from our students and families, is that they want more of that consistency that they experience. And so, as you can see here by this chart, there are some key moments in time. We have professional learning that is led by the district and our principals in August and January, which will be anchors for calibration around grading and homework. In addition, we have syllabi submission in August, and then monthly data study using grade data. That consistent process of analyzing our practice in common course teams is a great way to be monitoring progress on the monthly. In addition, also our principals have their fall and spring markers of observations where they're directly talking with teachers and giving feedback on practice. So as you can see here, our principals really are key leaders who check and monitor implementation of all of our strategic initiatives in the district. And it's not just about checking, but also diagnosing needs, right? What is going well for our teachers? What additional supports are needed so that we can adjust and ensure quality implementation? Okay. And then lastly, our goals for 27 and 28. We intend to engage students, families, and teachers and district staff in a work group to guide the next iteration of this grading work. While we've had numerous listening sessions with students, staff, we want to bring together a group of stakeholders together to really give feedback and hear from one another to guide this next iteration of the work. This will include, in particular, working further towards greater consistency across the district by common courses and departments, as well as digging into the interest we heard at our board meetings from some of our families about grading scale adjustments to align to our districts within the region. And as Rich mentioned, we will be working with those districts beginning this June, which is great. Also, for those who are interested in joining the work group, applications will be available in August, and we encourage a large group. We want to hear all the perspectives, students, families, staff in this learning and in this next iteration of the work. Lastly, we will continue to address grading inconsistencies through the problem-solving practice that the GPAC has codified this year, and as you saw with AP Calculus AB. And with that, we welcome your comments and questions.
Director Coyne.
Thank you for the presentation. I think this is exciting. I think this looks like it's going to be a positive path forward. A quick question on page 4, the timeliness of feedback. I know that was something that was identified, I think on, it was fall of 25, the IEA ISD collective bargaining agreement. I'm assuming that will be the timeliness of feedback and grade entry. Is that also going to be part of the monitoring process throughout the year? Because that's common feedback that we get, that geez, students don't necessarily know how they're progressing because the grade isn't entered yet and they haven't received feedback. So I just wanted to confirm that'll be part of that too.
Yes, yeah, okay. That is a perfect example where the CBA says that there needs to be some feedback before it's tested again, and that grades should be updated every 3 weeks. And so building that into our regular systems for feedback for teachers is absolutely part of what we're talking about.
That's great to hear. And how, I guess, specifically, how will that be monitored to ensure that, I guess, that that's consistent across all?
Yeah, so through the regular observation process, that can serve as a marker in time to check in on what is happening, what is the common practice. And that is our regular process for checking in, progress monitoring, and accountability.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But to follow up on that, like, how do you really know, and how are you really going to solicit the information? Because I think what I would say is, unless you're providing some sort of email address or specific reach out on a mid-quarter basis to students, you won't actually know, because you don't have the ability to look through 6,000 students' Canvas to see what's been graded and what's not. And I don't think AI is quite there yet for that. So I think that creating some sort of actual place for students, parents to be able to say, hey, just a note of feedback here would be something for you to take a peek at, would be welcomed. Because all this sounds great, but if you don't actually monitor it, you don't actually know if it's happening or not happening.
Sure. I think there are some ways to monitor with our technology tools, right? You can see when things have last been updated in gradebooks or not. However, I appreciate the sentiment of how are we regularly hearing the feedback from students and families on their lived experience. And I think we should absolutely build that into the upcoming work group to hear what are the best ways that we can solicit that feedback systemically and systematically.
Director Anderson.
Thank you for this. I think we're definitely making some leaps and bounds in the right direction. Will the future work group that you mentioned require families, teachers, and students from across the district so we can make sure we're equitable? Because if we get a ton of applications from one side, but making sure that it's evenly distributed.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've got some pretty established procedures for that. So if you think of like our levy committees or our tech advisory committee, those are committees where we've made sure that we have representation, and we seek both representation across the district and across different groups, and seeking to make sure we get some demographic representation as well. Our current plan for the next year is to focus on high school, so that allows us to really be looking for representation across the 3 comprehensive high schools particularly. So it should be a robust representation from each high school.
Okay, good. I'm interested in the GPAC process, and I'm not sure if this is a question that can be answered in this room, but just kind of food for thought. I'm curious if there were any concerns raised by certified teachers that were participating in the GPAC about the possibilities of educators being pressured to award grades that may not accurately reflect the mastery and performance. I know that this has been something that's been, I don't know, I don't want to say brought up, but I've heard discussions on, teachers feeling like they need to push students along for, various reasons. And then with this focus, I don't know if that's being talked about.
That is absolutely talked about throughout these conversations. I would say that we went back to a very clear, simple written statement that the grade should reflect the learning. The grade should reflect the learning. So same learning, same grade across our schools. The interesting part with AP classes is you actually have 2 points of reference. You have each student's AP test score from previous years and their grade. So you can actually, so that was one of the reasons why we were able to highlight that course as an area of concern, that we saw students earning a 5 in one school getting B's versus 5 in another school getting A's, and noticing that difference being more consistent. Generally speaking, so this did cause us, we looked at basically every AP class throughout, and we actually saw throughout our system a great deal of consistency. So a great deal of alignment. And it was the alignment that AP as an organization said we should expect. And so we saw a great deal of alignment, and that was just one course where we said, we do not have a strong alignment across our schools in this particular course. And as you received our flow chart and problem solving, we did some research into it. And then we said, let's bring the teachers together and find a solution.
Great. And then one last thing, and this is a question for my fellow board members. On slide 3, or in the actual operational expectations, because I did pull it up and verify, under 12.2, the last bullet says the language states that homework practices should be consistent across schools, but may not include elementary special programs, accelerated offerings such as AP, IB, and high school courses offered at the middle school level. I feel like we're changing that expectation because of the efforts that the district is putting in AP and standardizing homework and grading. So we may need to revise that expectation. Because we're saying it won't, not necessarily will address that. No.
The materials that were sent out on Wednesday,
No, but I'm saying in our operational expectations, right there, that last bullet, it says not necessarily including an AP's there, and we're asking the district to improve homework and grading for AP. So I feel like that expectation is conflicting because we're saying it may not include it, that we don't, practices should be consistent across schools, not necessarily AP and IB.
it's saying that the level of homework that is required for an AP class is not the same as the level of an on-level course.
But that's not what it says. It says homework practices should be consistent across schools. Maybe it's a wording thing. I want to make sure we're setting clear expectations with what we've asked the district to do with AP and IB versus what this says. So we can take that offline. I just wanted to highlight it while we were looking at it.
Dr. Mullings?
Yep, always policy work to do, Director Anderson. Yes, I have a couple. So on this AP calculus, this particular example, I think what you went through is that you saw a pattern that showed that this particular class needed focus. Are there others that showed up in that pattern, I guess is my question. And then do we feel like we now have a method to apply to rectifying?
Yeah, in looking through the data, we have, well over 1,000 high school courses. So I can't say that I've studied all 1,700 courses, and some of the courses, of course, are singleton courses anyway. But a couple of things we look at is grade distribution patterns. So when you see a significant different grade distribution pattern of the same course across schools, we don't believe that our students are that significantly different in their achievement levels. So that's an area that would flag a course to say, hey, what's going on here? We actually have an incredible amount of consistency of grade distribution in many of our courses. And so, yes, we've been kind of in our regular data study. So as semester 2 grades are about to come out, we will spend some time doing some data study around those grades and look for two things. One is, are there areas where we're seeing achievement below the levels that we would expect to see? So we've highlighted some courses to say, yes, we're consistent across schools, but we'd like to see a higher level of performance in our students. And again, I want to always say it's not getting higher grades, it's getting higher achievement that then is reflected in the grades. And we're going to try to really reinforce that again and again to the point that Director Anderson made. So yeah, we've got some methodology for that. And one of the places fair or unfair, AP does give us 2 points of data that allows us to kind of have an external reference point, and so does IB. So it gives us some additional means, but we're looking at the grade distributions and consistency across the district.
So do I hear that as we close a semester, there'll be an evaluation of where there may need to be additional work such as this same pilot? And is there a current backlog? Are we aware of some other ones now?
I would say
we need
that
to do the same alignment on.
I would say that our mid-year study, I have a few that popped up that I'd like to see how they land on semester 2.
Okay.
And see where we're at with that. So there's a few that we are aware of that are worth paying attention to.
So I think that might be helpful. I'm very much in a where we now state today. So I think it'd be helpful to kind of keep aware of like, okay, now if we have a method of identification and a way we can go about this, then it would be great to understand as we go forward how many courses are falling into that. What do we expect for corrections or changes?
Yeah, I would say also that's been one of the big pieces that the Grading Practices Advisory Committee has talked about, is getting another point of reference. So we haven't planned it yet, but the intent is to do a little bit of inquiry in the August lid day by getting some direct information, so that it was mentioned on the slide where the monitoring plan. We have some pieces of information that teachers have submitted to their principals annually so that we can look for calibration. We're thinking that we need to ask a few more questions so that we can get a better idea of the various grading practices across the schools, so that our principals have more information on which to use to monitor consistency.
Wonderful segue to my next point, which is, so I love seeing an owner for the review and the observation to make sure, but I guess what I'm not really understanding is what is different about what the principals are doing? Like practically, are they going to have additional reporting? Is there something they're completing? Like what is the actual difference that the principals will look at or review?
Yeah, I'd say the difference is taking the time to calibrate as a system. What does it look like to monitor progress and to document monitoring progress? That level of specificity and alignment across principals has not been recent work. So that's what's new and different.
So the principals will get trained how to do it, and then there's a moment in which the principals are gathering together to look at the output.
Yes, and I didn't mention this earlier, but the executive director of secondary education is the convener of the principals, right? And also monitoring that work across schools.
Okay, helpful. I was like, I didn't I have a couple more. I'm going to keep going. So the note about the goals for 27-28. So collaborate with regional school district leaders on grading practices. What do we hope we're talking about there?
There has been outreach to me by neighboring districts. And so we have our first meeting between Mercer Island, Lake Washington School District and Bellevue School District to discuss the fact that everyone is actually reevaluating certain grade scales. And that's
The A
been
minus.
the A minus, for example.
Okay.
So it's actually interesting because some districts that didn't have the A minus might want to go back to it. So this is actually important because
Okay.
if the part of the rationale for why we would go to removing an A minus from the grade scale would be to align with neighboring
Right,
partners.
and
So
they are going to go back.
this is going to be an interesting first conversation, and it will then have an interesting overlay in our collaboration within our own district. And so there's interest because we all see the need to have conversation, and we will see where that goes. And we will keep you updated on that. And I think it's actually really important work, and glad that there's been effort to try and come together to hear what we're hearing, because we might hear something different that gives us a different point of view, and vice versa.
Okay, I have one last, which is I appreciate the structure of the document, the progress. It is all about grading, not the homework, which is 12.2. So is there a conversation to be had on that side of the equation?
Yeah.
Oh, Harlan.
Yeah.
Dr. Gallo.
I'll just intervene right there because that's where my focus of questions on. So it's actually on the document that you sent out on Wednesday. But before I get there, for slide 9, is it meant to say goals for 27-28? Like we're forecasting 2 years out from now?
Yeah.
Like the 26-27 school year is next school year. That's the year that follows. So I was curious if that was intentional or technical. So
I think the intention was, so we're working on these things next year for implementation in fall of 27.
Okay, yeah, so that's the
it
clarification.
is for 2 years from now.
Well, so the engagement side, we will be engaging next year. We're not waiting to 27-28 to do the engagement. The goal is that engagement results in defining the changes we're going to make for fall of 27-28. So sorry for the confusion on that.
Okay. And then I firmly want to go back to what Dr. Mullins was asking. And so for my board colleagues, from the document that was sent out for the Wednesday update, that was number 4. And it's page 4. So draft guidelines, I am concerned about them. I would say my description is they are insufficient at best. And I think you heard, and I think we've collectively heard over enough time and space and place that unless you specify that due dates aren't on Friday at midnight, they will continue to happen. And I think you have to explicitly say, unless we as a district and board believe that homework should be due on Friday at midnight, it shouldn't be. I'm a little surprised to see that it says teachers will make reasonable effort to avoid assigning homework over extended breaks in support of families using breaks for vacations. And I'm not sure why we're not drawing a hard line in the sand and say, we will not expect homework to be completed during winter break and spring breaks. Like their breaks, we want our teachers to be able to take breaks. So why wouldn't we want our students to take breaks? If we're really, part of our strategic plan is wellness, we got to do the part that doesn't worsen wellness.
Sure.
So those are my first 2 comments about that. Then just globally, it would be, I feel like it's missing the pivot to real meaningful change. The words don't seem to be any different than what they are today. And so I don't believe that you're actually going to see a change in practice until the words either have stronger language or an accountability piece. Because this is really, really important if we're going to lead into bringing joy into our school district and really focus on the proactive parts. it's a parallel path of how do we unlock joy within our classrooms and our buildings, and how do we not squash joy? And this is part of it. And then I would bring you to how it fits into me for document 2 that was sent to us on that same update is when you look and see the enrollments of high school for alternative learning environments, that math is the outsized class in both Skyline and Issaquah. And so we're talking a lot about alignment and homework, but if people are running away from our comprehensive high schools, particularly our comprehensive high school math departments, because of all of these things, that's really important information I'd love for you guys to dig more into. And since these are our students doing our alternative learning environment classes, I would ask you to leverage them to find out like what supports, what grading practices, what environment changes would they need to bring them back into our buildings. Because I think we all would believe that learning in a classroom in front of an certificate teacher would be the gold standard for most kids. And so when we see that we have 203 at Skyline and 254 at Issaquah that are taking math outside, like in our district, but not in the building, those are not small numbers. So for me, I think that's a marker that I look at for, is this work, are we making the right decisions and making the right impacts by, do those numbers continue to go up or do those numbers start to recede? And it would be the same thing for our running start numbers. Like running to Bellevue College because you're going to take Calc 3 that isn't offered in our schools, very different than running away from XYZ because of inconsistent or overwhelming amounts of homework. And so those are other markers that I would encourage the system administration to look at for, like, how do you know that this is the right work and it's having the impact that we want beyond just asking perception data.
Dr. Coyne.
I agree, Director Gallinger, with your points there. I think one thing though, with the online courses, my interpretation was a lot of the students potentially are taking up for acceleration. So I'd want to understand that too. And then I think through that lens, I would hope to, when we think about, consistency around homework, that families are not influencing that, because that is something I hear too. Families saying, we want more homework. And so I want to make sure that there's a balance to that too, because I think a lot of our families, from a lot of our data, they're wanting acceleration and they're going elsewhere to get that for their students. And so I want to make sure that that doesn't influence homework practices, because that's a choice those families have. If acceleration is the direction they want to go, I wouldn't want that to influence increased homework broadly for all students.
I appreciate all this input, and I think it really highlights that we need deep engagement, not just a simple question, but really some deep inquiry into the experience. And so that's going to be the task of that engagement this fall, is to figure out how do you get those stories and get into the nuance. So I appreciate that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I would just say I agree with Director Mullins' point about it seems grading heavy versus homework heavy. And with Director Gallinger's point that I think we might need more strident language or something along those lines. If we go to the monitoring for how we're assessing homework loads, it's not clear to me how that's being done. Is that merely through looking at syllabi? Because it seems to me, at least in my experience in the schools and from hearing from students, this area around the inconsistency of homework loads more than any other is the key point or the key struggle for our students. So I'm curious, that's the point of clarification as to how we would look at that to ensure the homework loads are consistently applied.
So that is definitely one of the questions that we'll be asking ourselves in August when we do the planning sessions of how do we triangulate that data. The initial conversation has been that it's going to take Again, a little bit of a very thoughtful approach because first of all, we need to define what homework is. And what I'd say is that we'd like to know what teachers intend as homework and what teachers see as the homework load, and how does that compare to the students' reported homework load or perception of assigned work. And so that's one of the things we need to look at is the intent playing out in the experience of the students. That is going to take some approaches to figure out how we get that in a reliable form.
Okay. I had just another couple points of clarification. This is just probably maybe my own misunderstanding, but I wanted to be clear. Do I understand on the AP IB bump issue that some disciplines like English AP courses should all have the same policy on a bump, and science AP courses may have a different policy? Why wouldn't all AP courses just have a bump, or an IB have a bump policy?
That is a great question and was definitely a source of conversation with our teachers. And what we learned through that conversation is that each of the exams are different for the courses. They cover different standards, they approach it differently. And the standards for the courses are also different. And the amount that the test assesses of those standards can vary. So because each course is unique and different, that's why we thought the first best step and the most responsive step to the curriculum and the standards would be to align by common course.
Okay. That seems like making it a little more complicated than perhaps it needs to be, but that's just my opinion. Then again, I think I'm still not quite clear. When we looked at the goals for 27-28, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. Do I understand this slide to read that the hope is that all of these bullet points will be implemented at the beginning of 27-28? Or is some of this work to be started in 27-28?
I'm just checking.
I did say all.
So
yeah.
The collaborative work, the work that is described here will occur next school year. The outcome of that work will be enacted in fall of 2027. Take effect in fall of 2027. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was unclear on that. Any other questions, comments, Superintendent?
I have a comment reflecting on what Director Mullings asked and posed about homework. And I do want to say, in terms of the where we are comment, we had not spent as much time over the past 3 years talking about homework. We talked a lot about recovery, right? And so I think we probably don't see as much reflected here in terms of the progress towards really having the conversations as Mr. Melish was speaking about around the definition of homework. Really, we surfaced that a lot this past year because of some of the data that were so striking to us. And so that's where I think we've been now leaning in more to make that more visible and to uncover what's going on. So it's a bit about the where are we now. A lot of our conversations in recent years have been around recovery and less about what is the purpose of homework. What is the perception of that? What are the factors that drive it? Is it detracting from opportunities for young people? And so we saw that data, and I think that's part of the responsiveness of the next phase of that work. But I think if I were to locate where we are, that's how I see some of it.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that that's a difficult question the problem, I should say, to tackle, but nonetheless. Okay. Hearing no other comments, thank you very much for the presentation. Let's see, where are we? Okay, we are now moving along to monitoring report for results 1, mission statement R1. We will have a presentation from the administration, but first, I need a motion.
I move the board accept the monitoring report for results 1, mission statement R1 as presented.
I second.
Thank you. And we'll have a presentation here in just a second, and then we will have public comment after that if there is any in the room or online. I will turn it over to Superintendent or to, looks like, Mr. Hauser.
Good evening, Marcel Hauser, Senior Advisor and Strategy Lead. Always excited to end the year in June with results 1 because it's the culmination of a year's worth of work. And especially excited because this is sort of a roll up, although we're measuring this, the third year of implementation, we're also talking about sort of some celebrations over the last 3 years. So the goal for the presentation tonight will be just to outline and highlight what's in the report. So we'll pull out some highlights and celebrations, but the goal really is just to measure the mission. So I want to read our mission because essentially that's what R1 is about. It's about the work of the strategic plan as a vehicle to make reasonable progress toward our mission. So our mission is that our students will be prepared for and eager to accept the academic, occupational, personal, and practical challenges of life in a dynamic global environment. It's not every time folks come in this space and they don't, it's on the wall, but it just now, I want to put it in this space, in this airspace there. So that's what we're measuring tonight. That's what we're talking about tonight. As I said, strategic plan is the how. That's the vehicle, how we get it done. And we should always be thinking about alignment to the policies and the sort of the guiding documents that really lift and shine the light for our work. So just a little bit of alignment toward those 5 priority areas. And I'm going to jump in here, but I'm going to go quick because we presented this information at 3 previous board meetings. So it'll be a repeat. It's there online. Folks can go and see this. So by priority area, you'll see highlights that we've shared this year. There's a lot of highlights to share. So I'll just pick out one from this area. So the completion of the community resource directory and resource hub was big work this year. So our website's been updated. You can go on there. Families can go and access some of the resources to support. And that was directly connected to the student well-being priority area. So we think about academic opportunities. There's been a lot of work, big work that's going to continue going forward. So you'll see the MTSS support, like the roots and the foundation was built really this year and prior to that, but there was some heavy lifting this year to make sure things were ready as we got ready for the refresh and the rebuild. So in the next presentation, as we go into phase 2 and we'll talk about next, you'll see MTSS or multi-tiered systems of support really heavily pronounced in the new plan and in the strategy work. Diverse talent, there's been a lot of support in here. I want one piece, as we've talked about the amount of surveys or the lack of respondents to surveys, which has been an issue just everywhere, really, folks being maybe survey fatigued. I want to give a shout out to staff surveys because, and correct me if I'm wrong, Assistant Superintendent Hood, it is progressed with staff every single year. It's gone up every year. So the fact that staff are responding to the survey and feel safe enough to respond to those questions, and it's increased is a good sign that they feel safe enough with the data and they feel heard and they feel like it's going toward a good cause or it's building towards something. The 4th area, so as we think about engagement, want to highlight, so youth East Side services. So some of the mental health supports that have been brought on board in the space, and just to make sure that there's been connections and really formalized partnerships with a lot of different organizations that have been out there. Maybe we partnered in the past, but we've formalized with MOUs, some memorandums of understanding, just to formalize partnerships throughout. So work has continued in that space. And then organizational effectiveness, the biggest piece here I would say is, and Martin's going to love this because the partnership with the state auditor's office, it's a capital F free, right? So ongoing support where they're providing Lean Six Sigma training and they train folks, again, free of charge. So that's the gift that keeps on giving. You think about those training sets, folks can then take that training, those learnings, and implement those throughout, creating efficiencies, saving the district money over time. So I just think that was a good partnership when it started a couple of years ago, but the fact that it continued on this year was just a good get for the district. So with that, lessons learned. So what did we learn over the last 3 years? There's been big things. I think we realized that, think about the equity-based framework and readiness. It was a big sort of undertaking to make sure the system was ready to understand what is equity-based budgeting, what does it mean, what's the criteria, what are you budgeting on, or what are the components. So I think that was a big lesson to think about how do you implement that in the budget cycle. So I know from the finance team, they've taken those lessons and sort of infused it along the way. Survey participation, I mentioned earlier. How do you start to get the rates up? I'm thinking about the Healthy Youth Survey, so 12th graders. We've talked about that. The board has talked about that. So we have to learn from what's not working. When do we administer? What are the, how do you, dangle the carrot maybe a little bit tighter so we get usable data that can be, used to make decisions going forward. And then another piece I want to think about so the equity piece in here, jogging on here. Oh, one piece up, going back to Donna's data, just how folks feel they support. So we were looking at that number of like certificated staff and the hiring of staff. The state portal is revealing a higher number. So just to make sure we have accurate data when we're tracking numbers. So you'll see the state data is about 1.4% higher than our actual reported data of staff as they reveal or identify their identity. So big lessons learned over the last 3 years. And it leads to sort of like the what and then what as you measure the data and the different outcomes. Over the last 3 years, we had system health indicators that we've tracked throughout. We baselined in 2022, 2023, and then some data came online the following year. So I'm going to walk through quickly and just kind of highlight some of the pieces that came up over the last year. So it's hard for me to reach it here, but on a positive note, you'll see the 4-year grad rates are up across all groups. So all students, BIPOC students, students with disabilities, the numbers are up. They've grown over the last 3 years. And then the following, like that far column where it said, did it meet the target? That's the target that was set for the year. Like, did it grow at the targeted rate? So you'll see where it's a lot of good, right? In the grad rates. Then just to point out an area where it's flat. So the 3rd grade foundational learning or literacy reading for BIPOC groups, that's been flat across the 3 years. So it didn't meet the goal for this year, but it's just been flat at 68%, pretty much across the 3 years. Another point to kind of point out, sense of belonging with students, we've seen growth across it, and that's the soft skills survey that's sent out in the spring every year. So we've sent that out and asked that question of, students, do they feel a sense of belonging to building? That has increased throughout. You'll see with students with disabilities, there's still work to do in some of the groups. So there's some areas of growth that have been identified, but I would say the positive is tracking it, putting it down. You can really track from baseline and then identify where you need to put your focus. And I would say going forward with the next plan, you'll hear more about it in the next presentation. There's been a focus on what the strategy should be, where you should put your time and energy into. Next slide just kind of walks over some of the indicators. The family. So one of the survey questions that we've had is, do families feel welcomed in the environments? Are their opinions welcomed? We had a question around, grading with an A. That has seen consistent growth year over year with families feeling like they do feel like their opinions are heard. But that's a combined metric, I would say, because it's not only do you feel heard in the school, do you feel heard by the district? Do you feel heard when you come to a board meeting? So it is a combination of like, in this space, in the ISD, do you feel like your opinions matter? And that we've seen growth in that space with that question. The other one, as we look to the right with staff, that has consistently grown around staff feeling a sense of belonging at work. So it's increased year over year with the different groups in that space. And then also increasing staff of color and certificated roles. So we've, even though, like Donna would tell me, like the amount of staff that are retiring, that's dipped and lower. So there's less spots to fill. But I think staff, due to the anti-bias training and the different PDs that they've received, they're starting to mitigate bias in the space and hire at a higher rate, staff of color. With that, I'm just going to end with just a 3-year sort of celebration of kind of where we are over the last 3 years. Some good things have happened. So Care Solace and the different mental health supports, know it's important to the board, it's important to the community, important to the staff here that we continue to provide partnerships and grow. So we've seen additional mental health resources and partnerships grow. The Back to School Resource Fair has averaged about 450 families per summer. So coming to provide those supports, so about 930 students. And then we've seen it, just the screening and the hires. I mentioned that around the hiring practices, and then belonging is up amongst staff. So these are just a few of the highlights, just to think about the undertaking of the 18 strategies, 5 priority areas, and all the work that was established over the last 3 to 4 years. There's been a lot of systems put in place, and a lot of things to celebrate. So excited about this chapter, sort of wrapping. A couple other highlights here. And excited about how we build upon what's here. And you'll see in the next presentation, sort of the build off of what we did well, where we need to grow, and how it's being kind of fine-tuned and focused going forward. And with that, I will stop the framing and open up for board reflections.
Director Anderson.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this update. So, Mr. Hauser, it was interesting. The two things that you pointed out as highlights on slide 7 and slide 9 were things that I actually had questions on. So for slide 7, the community resource directory, and as well as we mentioned Care Solace on slide 19, and maybe this might be more of a question for Mr. Sherwood, but how are we communicating that these exist to the district? Because, or to our families, I should say, because I always say I don't know what I don't know. And if we're just putting stuff out on our website, or we're waiting for a student to walk into a counselor and share Care Solace at that point, we're defeating the purpose of having this available, and kind of accessible if we're waiting for that. So how are we communicating that these exist?
Now I get to do the fun part, play point guard. Okay, tagging you, Mark Sherwood. It's gonna be fun tonight. We're gonna do some shifting.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Anderson. Obviously, when you have a web page with thousands of pages, as you said, and it's out there and through Google search, so we have to do annual promotion or information at the beginning of the year. First of all, not only just legal notices, but where do you get your information? Where are the resources? And then also there's also topical, if there's a mental health month or social month or social, workers month. So we're pushing it out in different ways and through our social media channels, and not just one time and one time only and posting it on the website. Can you do more? Obviously, yes. I mean, but also I think that's something that working with Dr. Carver and Dr. Downey going into next year, as we start enveloping our counseling into our entire MTSS model and UDL, we're going to start connecting, I think, those counseling supports a little bit more to the all around whole child support. So we can always do more. So, but there it is done periodically. I'd have to go back and audit exactly when we did it throughout the year, but there's been opportunities.
Well, thank you for that. I will
Sure.
be keeping my eyes open
Oh, yeah.
to
Yeah.
see if I
Yeah.
see them, because
The-
again, until I was sitting in this seat, I didn't know some of this existed. So I'm assuming there's a lot of families out there who don't know or haven't seen it.
And a lot of times it's in the back to school information, that it's also when we come back in January, we'll say, just as a reminder, here's some opportunities. But again, I think frequency can always help.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. And then on slide 9, where it says we saw an increase in the total number of existing staff willing to work for ISD again, as well as resignations and retirements declining. Has that data been shared with the board that maybe I haven't seen? Because I'm a data person, right? I would love to see those numbers at some point, just to see those trends.
We have shared that before, and we can pull that forward. I know that you joined the board in mid-year, so we can, sometimes the cycles are a bit off, but we can make sure we pull that forward as part of the next steps.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Dr. Coyne.
I want to thank you for the great work and a lot of wonderful things to celebrate, obviously. So thank you. Question going back to Care Solace. So Director Anderson kind of read my mind as you were asking that question, actually, towards the end of, not that I was multitasking, but it got me thinking. I was multitasking. Care Solace, because I think that's great work. So I went on my students' school page and thought, okay, where would I find it? And I still cannot find it. So I guess it goes back to just some general feedback on, great, we have it. But if I'm a parent trying to look for that resource, or even I will say I've shared and mentioned the resource to other parents, and they said, oh, we haven't heard about it before. What is it? Tell us more. And I obviously have limited information on it. So I think there's definitely opportunity. I think it's something to celebrate, but I think we have to promote it. And I think we somehow need to make it easier to access from the school webpage. Because like I said, I still cannot find it. So
yeah, very helpful feedback. We'll take that.
yeah, thank you.
Director Mullins.
So I love this update. I think that the thing that is on my mind as I look at it and think about is the slide, I think it's 15, with the system health indicators. There's just a lot of different data points. There's a lot of things to care about. And I think one of the things we've talked about over the years has been like, what are the metrics that matter? And how do we know if we're moving the system forward in a way that makes sense? And so I think the slides that are included here, 14 as you go forward, 16, like I think these are very helpful and simple representations in the slideware, but obviously in the Power BI that you've linked here. If people want to see what is happening, what the progress looks like, where change is flat, so hasn't gone down, in some of the limited amount of areas where there's been a decrease in statistics. I come back to this because I think we live in a community that can be kind of flippant with feedback. And like, well, I just don't know what anyone's doing for students. I don't know what the impact is for students. Yeah, that thing you just talked about is nice, but what about? And this is my what about. So when I look at these pages, they are just very clear and validating. Are we getting students to graduate? Are we helping with their early literacy? Are they feeling like they're connected and comfortable? Do we have work to do? Sure, there's a couple places. Are they feeling emotionally safe? But the indicators of whether kids are going to thrive in our environment. And then even more importantly, these indicators of the family surveys of, do we feel welcome? Do we feel encouraged? 20 plus point increases of that says we're on the right track. And so again, it's a complicated system. When something is wrong or matters to me, it matters, dramatically, and maybe I can't see the progress or see the focus, but this presentation for me is like the presentation of, are we doing the things that matter? Are we making progress for our students? Are we reaching families? And I think the way it's laid out, hopefully, is in a way that can be simple and people can follow along with the Power BI, click on it all the time, just to see how things are moving. But maybe I have of late just grown a little frustrated with the flippant feedback from people, and would just ask, as I do with my guide to understanding the budget, that yes, we want things to be simple, but this is complex work. It is multifaceted. It is overlapping. It is overlaid. And that I am just increasingly impressed with the way we have gotten to what matters, and making that available for those who are interested to do that. And maybe still hard to find because it's too much of it, yes. But I think it's an important moment to say that, 6 years ago, I was like, this is a lot of data. I'm not sure what is important. And to sit here and to be able to get down to things that matter, and are we moving the needle? I just am very impressed. And I don't know, I guess it's my mood at the moment. I would just beg people to tune in with the flippant feedback, and pay attention that in a time with all the constraints available that could impact us for doing great stuff for students, this district is doing great stuff for students.
Well said. Dr. Gallinger?
Just a technical note. The link for the Power BI in the report didn't work for me. Maybe it worked for you guys. So I just had to go to the district website and directly find it. But my question is if you were to disaggregate the data for the students with disabilities marker, like system health indicator about sense of belonging, is that decrease universal, or like so disaggregated by building or by grade level, since it's like 4th through 12th? I would be curious both on, is it focused on like the 4th and 5th graders feel unchanged, trend high, the middle school? So I would like to see it both by elementary, middle, and high, as well as across our district, to know, because it's hard to know when you see something that the needle hasn't moved. Has it not moved everywhere, or on aggregate that it hasn't moved everywhere, but really it's moved up on 80% of our buildings, but the 20% make it even? So I think that would just be curiosity that I would love to know the answer to, because the Power BI doesn't let me slice and dice it the way that I would like.
Okay, noted.
It's helpful feedback. And I do think that what we can, because we do have, these are meant to be super high level, but the other results captures from the building level. So we can sort of start working that in also at an earlier time frame in some of our other monitoring reports as well.
And I would understand why it wouldn't be part of the public facing site, but for our purposes, I think it would be really helpful, and it's pertinent for then the next conversation for like what stays, what goes, what gets added or redefined.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's see if there's any public comment in the room or online. No public comment. Okay, we did go right in. That's okay. Okay, very good. I think my colleagues covered most of the things that I wanted to raise. I will just add another voice very much in favor of our system health indicators, and what a great bite-sized pieces really to consume about how the district is doing in all this really important work. And just really thankful for it as a representation of the work that's going on. A lot of great work. Appreciate all of the hard work you all have been doing. Superintendent, do you have any final comments?
So I would like to really appreciate Mr. Hauser here for his leadership in helping our district and guide our district along with the first strategic plan amidst coherent governance, as well as then move us towards the kinds of rituals and routines to be able to bring forward dialogue around where we're doing in the aggregate, and really be able to answer the question that I think was very much part of the first year of my superintendency, where what are the meaningful milestones, right? And so we have a lot of data that we track, in our other results reports, but how do we sort of take a moment to actually look at that with respect to our mission and centering on that at a very high level. So thank you, and it's much appreciated. And then also just kudos to the work of all of our strategic plan priority area owners, as well as strategy leads. We have a map of who owns what, and then there are other people that are informing that work as part of sort of mini teams to support the effort. So that's just my appreciation to our team at large and to Mr. Hauser.
Okay, with that, I think we have a motion on monitoring report for results 1. All in favor of accepting the report, please say aye.
Aye.
And the vote passes. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Next up is our strategic plan refresh. Looks like Mr. Hauser isn't going very far. So we will, there will be public comment heard on this agenda item as well. But first I will need a motion.
I move the board adopt resolution 1268 in support of the district strategic plan as presented.
Okay.
A second.
Thank you. We will have the presentation, and I do promise to get public comment before we dive in.
Okay.
All right, great. I'm going to kick us off here, and just this is the mark of a transition of enlisting more folks to help support our ongoing work on the strategic plan. As Mr. Hauser does transition, this will be his formal final presentation and leading this work and setting us up for the future in the next chapter. And so we're going to have a real team effort here as he continues to play point guard, I guess. Is that your reference?
Still playing point.
Yeah. So I just wanted to open up and say that. So we have a lot of our team members here ready to assist as we start to not only operationalize the work in the next ways that we need to, but also have that really be aligned to the current work that exists in the district. So as to not see this as separate work, which I think is always a possible challenge with anything related to strategic plans. So that's why you see a whole cadre of team members also here to assist in this next part of the presentation as we look to the next chapter. So our purpose for tonight is to, provide some information about the last meeting, to then show what some of the highlights of some of the changes were from the last conversation, and a recap from that work study as well, and then to talk about some of the next steps.
Okay. I'll tag back in. As shown on the last slide, consistent across, the guiding documents will be the guiding documents. So So we think about our vision, mission, and goals for students. Those are unchanged. So the new strategic plan or anything built must align to what's already present here in policy. So we have very intentionally built and thought about through the pressure test of, does this fit? Does this move the mission? Does it move the vision? How does it connect to the other pieces? So that pressure test has been done, and it's something that we'll have to continue to do as we move forward. And with that, this is the shortest time I'll have on the mic for a presentation. This is back to you, I think, Superintendent Talia.
Thank you. As we tag team, we're getting familiar with that. Some recap items from the last board meeting and work study we just wanted to put forward as we sort of anchor then the items that we'll share next. I don't need to read the whole thing, but I wanted to make sure we put that forward so we could really focus on some of the content that we are putting forward now. And I think most importantly, we made some we spent more time talking about metrics at the last meeting, and so there was where we made some adjustments and have some follow up here. And I think the conversation on what are we measuring so that we can know where we are against some major areas of focus, in particular around student well-being and wellness, around anxiety, was a really helpful conversation as I put a highlight on that one. So that's a recap of what we talked about last time, but I want to pause to see if there's anything that you'd want to add or comment on from the last board meeting as a check-in. Okay. All right, got some head nods there. All right, I'll turn it over to Dr. Downey. Or was that me?
It's me.
Okay, that's what I thought. See, we're organizing ourselves in a different way. Thank you.
All right. So you all saw this last time, priority areas, strategies, and operational excellence, which serves as a foundation for the work. There are no changes to this from the May 29th board meeting, but we provide this overview, which we'll go deeper on in our next slides.
Just one reminder is the commitment to operational expectations and excellence there. So we will keep these in the forefront of our work on an annual basis. And so they're now embedded, and we will continue to work on those as we go.
I'll invite up Dr. Carver and Mr. Mellish to share more details about our priority area 1 and 2 areas and strategies.
All right, thank you. As we transition to talking about priority areas 1 and 2, consistent with our previous strategic plan, priority area 1 remains focused on student well-being, ensuring every student feels safe, supported, valued, and connected with access to the resources that they need to thrive physically, socially, emotionally, and mentally. And priority area 2 continues to center learning opportunities, ensuring students have access to academic resources, pathways, and supports that they need to reach key milestones and pursue their goals beyond high school. At the core of both of these priority areas, and they're rooted in equity, is a commitment to honoring student identities and removing barriers so every student, regardless of background, has what they need to succeed. What is new and different in this strategic plan, in this refresh, is 3 cross-cutting strategies. That was deliberate and sits at the intersection of both priority areas 1 and 2. So thinking about well-being and learning opportunities. When we think about this intersection, we want to make sure that well-being and learning are inseparable, and these strategies are designed to advance both simultaneously, creating cohesion, alignment, and compounding impact across our strategic plan. The first cross-cutting strategy is specifically focused on building positive, welcoming school climates where every student, regardless of identity or background, feels a genuine sense of belonging, safety, and connection to their school community.
Okay, the second strategy centers on integrated multi-tiered systems of support and universal design for learning, so MTSS and UDL. These have been centerpieces of our gap closure work through school improvement plans and strategic planning for the last several years. Keeping this as a key focus recognizes that we still have a ways to go to fully integrate these into our systems. We are committed to doing so and doing so in an integrated manner that acknowledges the relationship between personal well-being and learning outcomes. Strategy 3 speaks to how our approach to core instructional practices and our design of learning experiences impacts student outcomes and well-being. Strategy 3 centers on envisioning how to structure learning in a way that cultivates a sense of purpose, hope, agency, joy, and playfulness, which research says increases academic outcomes.
Okay, I need to click here. Okay, as we move past our cross-cutting strategies, we move into strategies that are specific to student well-being. And so that includes strategy 4, which reflects our commitment to whole child wellness, recognizing that students cannot fully engage in learning without supports across their social, emotional, behavioral, and mental health, along with their physical health needs. We are continuing to build a comprehensive mental and behavioral health continuum grounded in data, expanding community partnerships and innovative approaches to reach students with the right supports and the right times. On the basic needs and physical health side, this strategy extends to tangible access through examples such as our vaccine clinic and resource fairs, offering clothing and basic needs supports and other services that meet student and families exactly where they're at. One celebration, a tangible celebration in this space, is thinking about our recent vaccine clinic, where 1 in 3 students who received vaccinations through that clinic were uninsured. This is a powerful example of this strategy in action, thinking about how we're removing barriers and delivering on our equity commitments in real and direct ways. For strategy 5, it's really about community and belonging, because we know that students who feel connected are more likely to stay engaged, persist, and to thrive in our educational system. Our role here is to actively create and support the conditions for students to find their people, find those things that they're passionate about, whether that's through clubs, activities, or non-academic spaces, ensuring every student has a community built around shared interests and places where they belong, both inside and outside of our schools.
And one more strategy that is tied to our learning opportunities, strategy 6. It builds on the pathway work that was included in our current strategic plan, as well as the establishment of our portrait of the graduate. It leverages key opportunities such as the launch of a new high school, innovative high school, and the statewide refresh of the high school and beyond plan process. In this strategy, we aim to deepen and broaden the opportunity for students to explore and develop their pathway to personally meaningful life and learning goals.
And lastly is priority area 3, trust. Our goal is for students, staff, and families in the broader community to be empowered as partners in shaping the future of our students in our district, and that we engage in co-creative processes doing so. So in terms of changes based on last time, we cleaned up some of the language for clarity based on your feedback. Strategy 7 centers on student voice and creating systems for student voice beyond surveys, while also strengthening our survey process, as we discussed previously. Strategy 8 is engaging staff to improve both the student and staff experience in schools. This will include new ways for engaging, but also leveraging our pre-existing structures to engage in that co-creation and feedback.
And so for strategy area 9, this is about broadening those opportunities for families and community members to engage and build stronger connections with our schools. We've had the opportunity to expand where families and community can inform the budget and resource allocation, capital projects, and program decisions, and we want to help expand that. And we also know that we have some big challenges ahead. So during those times, we want to make sure we launch and embed those engagement opportunities for folks.
We continue to play musical chairs here. Let me move us forward. All right, strategic plan indicators. So this is a little bit of a rebrand. We were calling them system health indicators in the previous cycle, but we've rebranded as strategic plan indicators just for clarity and metrics. So point of the metric, I think we had a good conversation earlier around like what are they? And I think Director Mullins, you talked about what matters the most. So metrics should be meaningful. So do they have real benefit to students, families, staff? Are they movable? Think, can you realistically put with the numbers, with the resources, move the needle on those different pieces? And then are they measurable? So can you collect the data? Do we have systems that's collecting accurate data in a transparent way? So those are the three sort of criterion that we use as we think about like what can we poll? Is it usable? Can it move the needle and move things forward? And with that, what you'll see here in the structure, and Dr. Downey invite her to join me here, but I'll set up sort of what you see here. On the right side, you're going to see a note on what was part of the 3-year cycle prior. So if you see that on there, that's a measurable, or that's an indicator that we have used. It's a familiar indicator. We're recommending pulling it forward. You also see some new indicators from feedback from board community that we thought would be important to pull forward on this next iteration of the plan. And then on the far left, you'll see an alignment toward where we see it closely aligns to a particular priority area. Not to say that it wouldn't impact the other areas, but we're just sort of notating student well-being. Those are some key indicators that would keep an eye on in that space. So with that, Dr. Downey, I invite you to kind of shed light.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. There's a couple indicators that I want to note where we made revisions since you last saw this document. And one is under student well-being, second from the bottom, the percent of students who were bothered by not being able to stop or control worrying more than half the days or nearly every day within a 2-week period of time. So previously we had a question there about students saying that schools support their mental health. Based on our discussion, this question is the exact question that's asked on the Healthy Youth Survey. And so we wanted to have that consistent measure. It is also the question that is used in screening for anxiety. And so, again, wanting to just have consistent measures to look at for that important indicator of well-being for our students.
See some hand.
The second change is under learning opportunities. There were some questions around letter grade with Algebra 1 and why having that indicator. So this indicator is based on research out of University of Chicago and Chicago Public Schools and their Center of Excellence for 9th grade on track. And recent research as well from TNTP has shown that Algebra 1 success is one of the biggest indicators of on-track high school graduation. Now, that original research out of University of Chicago talks about passing classes. When we did our own data analysis as a district and got feedback from our educators, we found that when a student has a D in a class, it shows that they are more likely to fail a class and then be off track to graduate. But when we see C of any kind of C and above, students are consistently on track to graduate. So that is why we set the bar at C- or higher for Algebra 1.
So the next area, I would invite Mr. Sherwood, for trust. I'm going to talk about the indicators here. So we also have a few new indicators we're introducing to the system around net promoter scoring for families and staff. And then we also have when we're suggesting pulling forward around staff feeling a sense of belonging. So, you want to shed light on maybe net promoter?
Sure. So this year we shifted to the net promoter because it's more based on the consumer and the choice and a brand loyalty type perspective. Certainly from a parent and or a family member and or from a staff versus the A to F, which was a kind of a retrospective measure. We would ask about a prior year. There was no rubric, and usually with a net promoter, it's also are you willing to promote or an organization? And if you're willing to promote, that means you're willing to take actionable either an insight or sharing, whether it's as a promoter or a passive or a detractor. So we shifted to the MPS model, but definitely for going into this year. So we feel that that'll also, in addition to the net promoter score, it's actually the 2 follow-up questions that are connected to an MPS, which is what do we do especially well, or how can we improve? And then you put those into categories, and those are the actual deeper insights that you get from your passives or from your detractors that will really tell you if there are certain areas that we would need to move from an insight perspective from that standpoint.
So lastly, our timeline and next steps. So we are sharing the new strategy and plan with you all this evening. That leads into our summer work of developing work plans and drilling deeper into how we will enact this work. We also want to highlight that this summer, a team of 8 leaders will attend Harvard's Public Education Leadership Project to go deeper into problems of practice related to implementing our strategic plan. And then, as we did with the previous strategic plan, we will have our 3 years of implementation where we implement, track our work plans, and report out on progress. As always, adjusting based on our measures of progress to better implement our strategies and best serve our students, staff, and families. We welcome your questions and thoughts.
First, I'm going to see if there's any public comment. Anything online? No. Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Director Coyne.
So a quick question. Again, wonderful work. Thank you for the great presentation. Quick question on slide 14 under trust and under the new metrics or indicators that are going to be used. Will there be free-form responses that would be provided too with that? Because it's, I think of a net promoter score, great, but it's the free-form response that's most helpful. So will that be part of it?
Yeah. So the 2 follow-up questions right after you give your ranking from a 0 to 10 is what did we do especially well, open-ended field response, and then where areas could we improve at the district level and at the school level?
Awesome.
So
Okay.
yes.
Great. Thank you. That was my question.
Dr. Mullins?
Yes, thanks. So I really like the rework. I wasn't here for the last conversation. I think the condensing of it, less priorities, is great. I was particularly, pleased, excited about the cross-cutting ones. I think that makes a lot of sense. The connection across the priorities, structurally, the underlying importance of the operational expectations as just how we operate, I think is great. And the only thing that came up as we were talking tonight that maybe I was curious about or wondering is in the metrics, in the trust category, which by the way, I love the addition, adding the trust category. We talk about in the strategy that it's also about broader community, but I don't see any metric that might help us get an indication of feedback from the broader community. So is that considered, or is that something that is possible? I don't even know.
Yes, we considered it, but let's add the yes commentary.
Yeah, definitely. And if it was the board's encouragement last January to ask us to do a community survey. We didn't quite get the kind of numbers that we need. So I think for us to have a confidence factor of feeling like it's a strong from the overall community, I think we definitely need to get the numbers out. But I'm not sure it's strong enough to be an individual metric that you'd want to put into the trust. I think it's something to monitor. I may not be answering exactly what I'm.
No, you are, but now you've added a different curiosity. When you say we didn't get the numbers, like we didn't get the participation as far as
Correct.
numbers, or the result.
I'm talking about the
the
participation. Just the sample size was not very large. So obviously we were trying to get folks who didn't have children within the district lived, their residents, they live within our community in our entire district.
So what I might offer is I do think it's an important statistic. I understand what you're saying about the participation. Could we keep something that is like, are we executing a community survey versus like a specific outcome number? And maybe to your point about participation, maybe the goal is on increasing participation versus the score from what they might say.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But like just that we're doing the outreach and we're building on the outreach in some way.
Yep.
So just that's my only thing to offer.
It's a great suggestion.
Yeah, we definitely were not considering stopping the community survey. We just didn't have enough information to feel confident of putting it here as a metric to track. But I like the idea of the participation. So we were continuing with the community survey, just try to figure out how to best get the information that would be helpful.
Any other comments? Okay. We have a motion to accept resolution 1268. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No opposed.
All right, thank you, board.
Legislative matters. Next on our agenda is legislative matters. This is an opportunity to share legislative updates. Director Anderson, is there anything on your plate?
Not on my plate, but interesting news to share that this morning around 10 a.m., Governor Bob Ferguson held a press conference announcing that he will propose legislation to ban student cell phone use in all Washington public schools, K through 12, on a bell-to-bell basis. The proposal would prohibit students from using phones and other personal smart devices during the entire school day, including passing periods and lunch. This obviously will need to go to legislation, which is not slated to start until the next session, January 2027. But if it is sponsored and passed there, it would go into effect in the 2027-2028 school year. So we will continue to follow that proposal to see if it does make it sponsorship and legislative voting, and because it would impact our regulation 3245 cell phone policy. So
Great.
that's the only thing I'm aware of,
That's
but
interesting. I hadn't heard that.
yeah, it was like
Um,
10:30 this morning. So
Well, okay.
that's all I have.
Anything else from anybody? Okay, moving on. Announcements and correspondence. Does anybody have any correspondence they received that has that already been reported? No? Okay. Moving along. Calendar and future agenda topics. Let's see here. We have a few things to discuss. The monitoring report calendar for 26-27 school year.
I have a series of items here. Do you want me to step through them in
Why don't you just step through?
order?
Yes.
I am armed and ready. Okay, so first it is around the spring school board retreat. So I will have a motion there. So I move the board schedule the March 2027 board retreat on the following dates and times, March 4 and 5, 2026 from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Second.
Hold on, it should say 2027.
I
It
thought
says
she did say-
she just
I know it says 6 and I said 6.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I will correct. I move the board schedule. I will just revise it. I move the board schedule the March, because it says March 2027 board retreat on the following dates and times, March 4 and 5, 2027 at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next is school improvement plan meetings, 2 meetings in November and or December. So the next motion is I move the board schedule the school improvement plan meetings on the following dates and times. December 3rd and 16, 2026 from 12:30 to 4 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is the monitoring calendar, which we have copies of. Start with the motion. I move the board approve the 2026-27 monitoring report calendar as presented.
I second.
All those in favor? Say aye.
I did have one question.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, before? Yes, go ahead. Question?
Yes, so I was looking at it particularly from a lens of kind of student rep participation. So the front end looked good. They would be on and onboarded. I am curious though, like we had tonight, the results one mission statement and moving that earlier within when we would still have students. That was my question. Is that possible, or is it here for a specific reason?
It's in June. Well, one is that's how we started the cadence, but also it made sense because we're actually doing something slightly different from all the other ones. We're monitoring the year that we're in. So by waiting till then, but the data that we would likely be collecting, I think, could certainly allow us to move it up to May. I think I'm looking at the team just to say like maybe the May 20th meeting potentially, but we would want to make sure that this is a good one maybe for students for sure to be able to give input into, but also be able to consume and participate in an advisory vote. So I'm getting some nods from the back of the room. What? We have had some discussion also about the student representatives because sometimes they like to do some of the operational reports too. This would impact it. So, Mr. Hauser's back on the mic.
Yeah, I was saying because we do get the soft skills survey data and we get it just in time for like the June meeting. I think if it's May, it's going to be tight. But I think if the sequence is that to then say results one probably would move to May, so there's an opportunity for students to have a report to report on. So I think it would make
And
more
we'd
sense.
also need to move up the soft skills survey. So
earlier
into the timeline, which might not be. I just said we can. It's doable.
You could adjust the soft skills survey and then do the late May meeting. Yeah.
I'm assessing the
We can also
nonverbal.
come back with a change.
Yeah, we could also
come back with a change
Yeah,
later.
this is.
I'm not deeply tied. I was more of a curiosity.
Yeah.
So if we want to take some time to explore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But I know.
So we have a motion?
Director Anderson had a.
Oh, Director Anderson.
No, I'm good.
Oh,
Thank you.
So we have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye. Okay. One last one, I think. Yes. This is the 2026 WASDA Annual Conference. So I move the board attend the 2026 WASDA Annual Conference on November 19 through 21, 2026 in Spokane, Washington.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Great. Okay. This one more. Oh. Okay. Yeah, I have to too. So there's a discussion board about board membership dues.
Correct. So the board participates in different networks, WASDA, for example, and NSBA plus Cube. So it's really just the, head nod part of the discussion with the board about, are these the annual dues we wish to continue to contribute to and then, spend, because it's a helpful part to lift that up on an annual basis.
Some of it.
What's that? That's it.
So yeah, I mean,
Are these, could we do them individually? I maybe you don't know, or can we just do it by email? Maybe.
I mean, like, is there a separate due
So-
for Cube, for instance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
That was listed, I would say.
none of us. Yeah, so there's one we can strike.
Okay, so there's the NSB plus Cube, then there's just NSBA. Is NSBA the dues that you wish to continue to pay and participate in that network?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. That was actually more than head
Okay, I
nods.
didn't
That
know
was
how to- I didn't know
verbal.
how to separate it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
I mean,
you.
we attend NSBA conference, we attend their advocacy institute.
Yeah.
So we certainly support their
Right.
advocacy for investing in school directors.
Yeah.
And on behalf of public education.
Great. That's good to lay out the purpose and to talk about it as a
There you
group.
go.
Thank you. And then the same, we assumed for WASA, you already voted, but it's want to make sure we put it forward there as well. And that's another resource for board members to have a network and part of the local environment.
I think that's currently in state statute, so I don't think we have a choice in that.
Well, there you go. There you go. So it's that we're moving forward with expending the dues and maintaining that. So was there anything else on the board membership list? Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, we're adjourned.